Welcome to 100 Yards of Football. Today I got a college football special. It's a team legend. The 1992 Alabama Crimson Tide, Roll Tide. A team that no one expected to win the national championship that year. What a football team, coached by Gene Stallings. So, if you like the video today, please come in and share it. I'm your host, Mr. Football, Vincent Turner. Before we get started on this great team and the great season of 1992 with the University of Alabama, today our video is presented by betonline.com, associate of the Believe Podcast Network. Alabama, the program of the South, Bear Bryant, and now Nick Saban running it at his highest level. But the 92 season was special. It was the 100th year of University of Alabama football. And they had a coach who a lot of people didn't think would coach on the college level, and his name was Gene Stallings. A guy that had coached at Texas A&M from 1965 to 1971. Then went over and coached the Dallas Cowboys defensive backfield for 12 years under the great Tom Landry. And then another part of Gene Stallings' history, he was part of the Junction Boys. Bear Bryant's first year as the head coach at Texas A&M in 1954. And Gene Stallings was part of that football culture that restored Texas A&M. And think about who Gene Stallings' teammates was with the Junction Boys at that time. Jack Pardee, Charlie Kruger. A fantastic bunch. And Gene Stallings, none other than the greatest, and Paul Bear Bryant. But let's get to the magical season that he had in 1992 with the University of Alabama. That 1992 Alabama team wasn't explosive offensively as they are today with Bryce Young on the Sunday. They had a quarterback in Jay Barker, a guy, wasn't a special type of guy, but a guy, as you want to call a game manager. But when those chips was on the line, he made plays that season. But what set Alabama from everybody else that year was their defense. They only gave up 9 points a game that year. And that defense had some tremendous football players. The two DNs, John Copeland and Eric Curry. A linebacker by the name of Michael Rogers, who was going for stardom, but got in a car wreck the following year and never became the player we knew he could be. He was a tremendous linebacker. Then they had Leminski Hall, Derek Odom, great defensive back, and Antonio Langdon. One of the best college all-time safeties in George Teague. A young man by the name of Chris Dunley was an outstanding safety. And Sam Shade. And the thing that was special about that football team, everyone knows I'm from the 901 Memphis, Tennessee. They had two guys that started. John Stevenson, who was the offensive guard from Christian Brothers High School, and Chris Dunley, he was from Germantown High School, were mainstays. But there was other stars on that Alabama team that year. A guy who was a special team demon, ace, Dabo Swinney. You know what he's doing now, the head football coach at Clemson. Mickey Kahn, who's now on Dabo Swinney's staff, was a very accomplished high school football coach here in the Metro Atlanta area over there at Decula. That was the stars on that football team. And that team delivered. I'm going to go through the season right quick and point out several big games that year. Started September 12th when Alabama was taken to a real close game. Ended up being Southern Miss that year 17-10. But it's the defense that won that football game. Held Southern Miss for 3 first downs and 54 yards total offense. That's when you knew everybody in the country knew this defense was going to be special. Then October the 17th, 1992. Win over Tennessee. I remember that game because I was there. That's the game where Derek Lassiter had 33 carries for 142 yards. And the Tide sacked Heath Schuler 5 times that year. In that game, excuse me. Then the following week, probably their toughest game of the year when they beat Ole Miss 31-22. Jay Barker came huge that day. 25 of 39, 285 yards. Touchdown pass to David Palmer. Let me back up. The score in that game was 31-10. But the toughest game was November 14th when they played Mississippi State. I'm sorry. Very physical game, 30-21. Jay Barker again came up big. Didn't have God in numbers, 13-27, 198 yards. 1 touchdown, but the hero was Antonio Langdon. Probably one of the greatest college defensive backs that played that game. Had a 24-yard block punt return for a touchdown. Then against the arch rival Auburn, November 28th, Thanksgiving weekend, 1992. Antonio Langdon at it again. Big play in the game, a 61-yard interception return for a touchdown. The defense sacked Stan White 5 times and held Auburn to 139 yards total offense. And it was Pat Dye's last game. Now, the first SEC championship game in Birmingham, 28-21. What a football game. That Florida team, Shane Matthews, Eric Rett, Willie Jackson, Jack Jackson, Ellis Johnson, a sophomore playing defensive end who ended up becoming an All-American by the name of Kevin Carter, Will White, who went on and became a safety with the New York Giants. Very tough Florida team. That game came down 21-21, fourth quarter, with about 4 minutes to go. And the young man again, Antonio Langdon, made a play of the day, 27-yard interception return for a touchdown. And Alabama became the first outright championship game SEC champion. But there was one more hurdle. And this is why I got so much respect for this 1992 Alabama Crimson Tide team. One of my favorite teams of all time that's won the national championship. They took on the king, who was defining excellence at the time, who was putting that standard out there, the very serious Miami Hurricanes. Heisman Trophy winner Gino Torretta. And me and several other people across the country didn't think Alabama had a chance in that football game. Alabama was an 8-point underdog. And think about the star power that was with Miami that year. Horace Copeland, Lamar Thomas, Kevin Williams, Dallas Cowboys finest, Mario Cristobal, who's now the head coach in Miami, Gino Torretta. On the defensive side, if there was 3 linebackers that played together any time as a trio, Darren Smith, Michael Barrow, Jesse Armstead. I'm saying 3 linebackers that played as a trio at one time in college. Put any trio up there against me. I put these 3 guys up against you. Darren Smith, Michael Barrow, and Jesse Armstead. And then they had a corner by the name of Ryan McNeil, who ended up playing in the National Football League and have some good seasons with the Detroit Lions. And then they had a sophomore tackle who was creating havoc all through the year. And we know he was going to be great. Ended up becoming a Hall of Famer by the name of Warren Sapp. And then at the safety position, they had one of the greatest high school football players I ever seen up close and personal at the safety position. Came out of my hometown, Memphis Hamilton High School, K.C. Greer. And the University of Alabama proved to the world that night that that's why people look at them as football royalty in the South. Looking at that football game, Alabama dominated. And you want to know how much they dominated that night? They held Miami to 48 yards rushing on the offensive line led by Mario Cristobal. They held Gino Toretta, who won the Heisman Trophy that year, 25 of 56, 3 interceptions, 278 yards. And Miami only gained 326 total yards offense. And they picked off Gino Torella 3 times I just mentioned. And Derek Lassiter had 135 yards rushing in the national championship game in the Sugar Bowl. And Alabama had 60 rushes for 260 yards, 36 minutes of time of possession, while Miami only had the ball for 23:56. And Miami, other touchdowns, the Crimson Tide won that football game 34-13, was Kevin Williams' 78-yard punt return. The Tide dominated from head to toe to that football game. And when you look at that Alabama team, they were sure a lot different than what they are today. That year they had 4 running backs that carried the loaf during that season. Derek Lassiter had 905 yards. Sherman Williams had 300 yards rushing. Martin Houston had Chris Anderson had 575 that year rushing. And Martin Houston 457. And collectively, they had one of the best running games in the country. But it was that defense, however. George Teague ended up being one of the best safeties ever in college football. Went on, had a great career in the National Football League, had some years with the Dallas Cowboys, but the greatest thing is when he had that 31-yard pick against Gino Torella in the third quarter, and he went high step in, and the score became 27-6. But the player of the game by George Teague, why I got a lot of respect for him, is this right here. Remember Lamar Thomas had caught a sideline pass and was going in for a touchdown. Looked like it was going to be quick 6. And George Teague ran him down and stole the football. See, that's why greatness is hard to earn. It's sacrifice. It's ability, never giving up on the play. It's something like, Warriors come out to play. George Teague was a warrior that night on the field. And then when you look at the first half of that football game, how dominant Alabama was that evening as an 8-point underdog. Alabama had 152 yards rushing in the first half. Miami had 6. That's what champions are made out of. So to the 1992 University of Alabama Crimson Tide, that was a special football team, special football players from the defensive standpoint. Antonio Langdon, George Teague, Sam Shade, Chris Dunley, Eric Curry, and John Copeland. Coached by a great coach in Gene Stallings. Jay Barker, you did your thing from an offensive standpoint. One of the best game managers of all time. You did your job. That Alabama team will go down as one of the most favorites of mine of all time. So my final words about that 1992 University of Alabama team, before I get there, today's video has been presented by betonline.com, associate of the Believe Podcast Network. There's only one word for the University of Alabama. When the skies are blue, sweet home Alabama, Leonard Skinner. If you like the video today, please comment and share it. It's been an honor to bring you this video on the 1992 Alabama Crimson Tide. And special thanks to my producer, Mr. Logan Landers. God bless and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Roll Tide.